3,000 meters down, there is no light. Not dimness, not the blue-green murk of shallow water or the last grey traces of a cloudy day seen from below the surface. Total, permanent, undisturbed black. The kind that has existed at that depth since before there was anything alive on the surface to cast a shadow. Sunlight stops penetrating meaningfully beyond around 200 meters. Below 1,000 meters, it's gone completely. At 3,000 meters, you are 2,000 meters below the last trace of it, in what oceanographers classify as the aphotic zone. The temperature settles near 2 degrees Celsius, a degree or two above freezing, stable across years and centuries. The pressure is 300 atmospheres, roughly 4,400 pounds per square inch, bearing inward simultaneously from every direction. A modern military submarine, engineered specifically to operate under combat stress, built from high-tensile steel with a crew of over 100, has an estimated crush depth somewhere around 400 to 700 meters. The hull folds. At 3,000 meters, the submarine is already structural debris. The pressure at this depth isn't a variable, it's a ceiling. It removes everything that can't adapt to it. Something adapted. Physeter macrocephalus, the sperm whale, the largest toothed predator on the planet, males reaching 18 meters and 45,000 kilograms, roughly equivalent to 8 African elephants moving as a single coordinated body. The head is disproportionate even by the standards of large animals, a blunt, rectangular block accounting for up to a third of the body's total length, squared off at the front, unlike anything else in the ocean. The body behind it tapers, the skin corrugated in longitudinal ridges along the trunk, like old leather tightened over something rigid underneath. This is how a healthy sperm whale looks. Not damaged, not old. This is what pressure-adapted skin looks like on an animal built to move between two worlds. When it descends, the first thing that changes is the rib cage. Sperm whale ribs connect to the spine via flexible cartilage rather than rigid bone. Under pressure, the chest wall collapses inward. The lungs compress, shrinking, according to anatomical studies, to less than 10% of their surface volume without structural damage. This prevents the nitrogen absorption that would otherwise cause decompression sickness on ascent. The rib cage folds because folding is better than breaking. The oxygen supply comes from somewhere else entirely. Sperm whale muscle tissue carries myoglobin, the protein that stores oxygen directly in muscle, at concentrations roughly 10 times higher than in human muscle. Research from Rice University confirmed that deep-diving whales pack 10 to 20 times more myoglobin into their muscle cells than humans do. The muscle runs almost black because of it. The whale descends on an internal oxygen store distributed through its body mass, not dependent on the lungs once those have collapsed. Documented typical foraging dives run between 300 and 1,200 meters. The deepest tag dives reach approximately 2,000 meters. Some institutional records push further. The precise number at the outer edge matters less than what it represents. This animal goes where the submarines can't, and does so routinely. On biology. Occasionally, between dives, sperm whales have been observed resting in the open water, completely vertical, heads pointed downward, motionless. Not dead, sleeping. A group of them suspended upright in the dark water, pointing toward the deep as though at rest between two worlds. Then they surface, breathe, and go back under. The head they are pointing down with is the most important part of the animal. Inside that rectangular block, behind the squared-off face, is a biological sonar array of a precision that took decades of instrumented research to fully understand. The architecture has a name, the bent horn model. It was first formally described by Kenneth Norris and Graham Harvey in 1972 in a technical report published by NASA on animal orientation and navigation. The paper proposed that the sperm whale's enormous head functions as an acoustic, resonating and focusing chamber. Subsequent anatomical work and acoustic measurement have confirmed the core framework. Here is the mechanism. Air is forced through a pair of phonic lips at the front of the right nasal passage, structures sometimes called the museau de singe in older French anatomical literature, the monkey's lips. Pressurized air passing through these generates the initial click pulse. That pulse travels backward through the spermaceti organ, a long chamber filled with a waxy, oil-like substance that functions as an acoustic resonating body, the same material that gave the whale its common name when whalers first rendered it for lamp oil and industrial lubricants. At the rear of the head, a frontal air sac acts as a hard acoustic mirror, reflecting the energy forward. The pulse then passes through the junk, a series of oil-filled compartments in the forehead, which focuses and shapes it into a narrow, highly directional beam. The click exits the whale's head, aimed like a spotlight. In 2003, bioacoustician Bertel Merle and colleagues, Wahlberg, Madsen, Herford, and Lund, published their findings in the Journal of the Acoustical Society of America. The paper's key finding was direct. Source levels up to 235 to 236 decibels relative to 1 micropascal at 1 meter on the acoustic axis, making sperm whale clicks what the paper described as by far the loudest sounds recorded from any biological source. Guinness World Records documents this as the loudest animal sound on Earth. Educational sources commonly round to around 230 decibels. The figure derives from the same measurement dataset. A point of precision matters here. These measurements are taken in water under a specific acoustic reference standard and can't be directly compared to decibel scales used for sounds in air. The 235 decibel figure represents peak on-axis levels, the exact forward beam, close range, rare conditions. Off-axis, in a 2002 study by Madsen and colleagues, typical usual click values measured around 170 to 190 decibels. The beam is highly directional, roughly 27 decibels stronger on-axis than off. That directionality is the point. The sound is focused, not scattered. Some researchers have suggested that at very close range, a direct on-axis burst from a hunting sperm whale could potentially disturb air-filled structures in a human diver, inner ears, sinuses, lung tissue. This idea traces back to a 1983 hypothesis by Norris and Merle about whether intense odontocete clicks might acoustically debilitate prey. Later experimental work challenged that hypothesis substantially. A 2016 study by Peter Madsen and colleagues, published in Scientific Reports under the explicit title "Sperm Whale Predator-Prey Interactions Involve Chasing and Buzzing, but No Acoustic Stunning," found that during the terminal hunt sequence, the click source levels actually drop by 1 to 2 orders of magnitude compared to the search phase. The science on human injury remains contested, and the prey stunning hypothesis hasn't held up experimentally. The clicks are extraordinary. The weapon they constitute is echolocation, not sound pressure deployed as a blunt instrument. What the echolocation does operationally is this. During a descent, the whale emits usual clicks at a rate of roughly 1/2 to 2 per second, slow, powerful pulses sweeping the dark water ahead. Each click travels outward, encounters any object with acoustic properties different from the surrounding water, and returns an echo. The whale's brain reads the two-way travel time, distance. The time between click and returning echo encodes the gap between predator and prey. A single animal, in permanent darkness, at depth, detecting prey from hundreds of meters away through reflected sound. As the whale closes on a target, the click rate changes. The interval between pulses shortens. Below roughly 0.15 seconds between clicks, the pattern crosses into what researchers call a creak or a buzz, a rapid, continuous sequence at rates that can reach dozens or hundreds of clicks per second in the terminal phase. Philip Miller, Mark Johnson, and Peter Tyack established in a 2004 paper in the Proceedings of the Royal Society B that these buzzes are strongly and statistically associated with the deepest portions of foraging dives, with increased maneuvering and with sudden kinematic jerks in the whale's trajectory. abrupt physical accelerations that they concluded are consistent with attempted prey capture. The buzz is the targeting lock. The jerk is the strike. Median distance from prey at the start of the terminal buzz, approximately 24 meters. The click rate isn't intuition or instinct operating loosely. It's physics made biological. As the two-way travel time of the echo decreases, as the distance closes, the clicks automatically accelerate to match the changing geometry. The animal is reading the target in real time through sound, updating its picture of the prey's location many times per second, in permanent darkness, under 300 atmospheres of pressure, at depths that would destroy any engineered vessel ever built. It carries the largest brain of any animal on Earth and uses it entirely to hunt in the dark. What it is tracking down there is one of the more anomalous things alive. Architeuthis dux, the giant squid. Described from washed-up specimens since the 16th century, suspected before that. The kraken of Norse sailors, the thing that pulled ships under in the worst maritime nightmares. The mythology accumulated for centuries because no one could study the living animal. For most of recorded history, everything known about the giant squid came from dead specimens on beaches, dying animals encountered near the surface, and fragmentary evidence recovered from the stomachs of sperm whales. The first photographs of a live adult giant squid in its actual deep-sea habitat were taken on September 30th, 2004 by Tsunemi Kubodera of Japan's National Science Museum and Kyuichi Mori of the Ogasawara Whale Watching Association. They had worked together for nearly 2 years. On their third trip to a known sperm whale hunting ground roughly 970 kilometers south of Tokyo, they dropped a baited line to 900 meters with a camera and flash attached. After more than 20 attempts that day, an 8-meter squid attacked the bait. Over 4 hours, the camera took over 500 photographs before the squid broke free. It left behind a 5.5-meter tentacle that was still contracting reflexively when it reached the surface. The American Museum of Natural History documented that prior to this encounter, the giant squid had never been observed alive in its natural environment. The first video footage in deep natural habitat came 8 years later, July 2012, an NHK and Discovery Channel expedition using a submersible near the same island chain. The animal itself. Total length for a large female reaches 10 to 13 meters, tip of mantle to ends of tentacles. The mantle, the body proper, is approximately 2 meters long. Maximum documented weight around 275 kilograms. Most of the total length lives in the 2 long feeding tentacles which stretch and distort easily after death, inflating historical size claims toward 18 and 20 meters. The scientific consensus, based on over 130 examined specimens, is that mantles don't exceed about 2.25 meters in measured specimens. The animal is long relative to its mass. Next to the whale that hunts it, it's a very large kite on a very long string. Its biology is alien in the precise technical sense. 3 hearts pump blood through a closed circulatory system, 2 branchial hearts at the base of the gills handling gas exchange, 1 systemic heart driving oxygenated blood to the body. The blood carries oxygen not with iron-based hemoglobin, as vertebrates do, but with hemocyanin, a copper-based protein. When oxygenated, hemocyanin is blue. The squid bleeds blue. And then there are the eyes. Giant squid eyes reach up to 27 centimeters in diameter, among the largest of any living creature, rivaled only by the related colossal squid. In 2012, researchers including Dan Erik Nielsen published a paper in Current Biology examining why deep-sea squid evolved eyes this large. The analysis arrived at a specific answer. Eyes of this diameter, at these depths, aren't optimized for detecting small prey in dim light. Their size exceeds what that function would require. They are optimized for detecting large, moving objects. Bioluminescent disruption. The glow stirred up by something enormous moving through the water column. the approach of a massive predator generating its own disturbance in near total darkness. The researchers concluded that the giant squid's eyes evolved under millions of years of predation pressure specifically to detect the approach of a sperm whale from far enough away to attempt escape. The eye is the squid's entire defense strategy encoded in biological optics. 3 hearts pumping blue blood, eyes the width of a dinner plate, built for exactly one threat. A body that almost no human has seen move in the water where it actually lives. And when one does surface, when it washes up dead or dying on a beach in Newfoundland or New Zealand, it degrades within hours. The tentacles stretch and distort under their own weight. The measurements become contested, and it becomes a specimen in a museum jar rather than an answer to the question of what the animal actually does in the dark. No camera has filmed what happens next. No submersible, no autonomous vehicle, no diver has witnessed the confrontation at depth. The American Museum of Natural History states this plainly. Such battles have never been directly observed by humans in the wild. Knowledge of what happens comes from 3 sources: scars, stomach contents, and the acoustic behavioral data from tagged whales. The confrontation must be reconstructed from what it leaves behind. Start with the whale's skin. Sperm whales examined at close range, stranded animals, animals approached during long-term research programs, carcasses from the whaling era, carry circular marks concentrated around the head and face. The marks are sucker scars. The inside surfaces of a giant squid's 8 arms and 2 feeding tentacles are lined with hundreds of suction cups, each mounted on a stalk, each rimmed with a serrated ring of chitin. The Smithsonian Ocean Program describes the ring. Tough, finely serrated, made of the same material as a fingernail, designed to grip and cut simultaneously. When the squid latches onto something, those rings drive into the surface. They hold, and they score. Circular scars on sperm whale skin have been documented at diameters up to 20 centimeters. Older animals carry so many that the marks overlap each other. The Smithsonian's own documentation of these marks is clear. Many sperm whales stranded on beaches or caught by whalers exhibit telltale circular scars like these, and only one thing could have made them. Now look inside the stomach. Malcolm Clark, the marine biologist whose foundational work from the 1960s through the 1980s built the primary taxonomy of sperm whale diet through stomach content analysis, documented hundreds to thousands of squid beaks per animal across multiple whales from multiple ocean regions. Squid beaks are made of chitin, essentially indestructible relative to the soft tissue around them. The whale digests the animal and the beak remains, accumulating in the second stomach chamber. One whale was found to contain 18,000 beaks. 18,000 individual cephalopods, each represented only by its mouthparts. The last indigestible record of what it was. The arithmetic of predation at depth, written in chitin. The behavioral data confirms this is active pursuit, not scavenging. The terminal buzzes, the rapid-fire targeting sequences that Miller, Johnson, and Tyack established as capture attempt indicators, occur at the deepest portions of foraging dives. The whale produces its targeting lock signal at the exact depth where the prey lives. The scars are the squid's response to being targeted at depth. The beaks are the outcome. Assembled as a sequence, the confrontation looks like this. The whale descends, ribcage folding, oxygen stored in dark muscle tissue. Echolocation clicks, spreading out ahead in a narrow forward beam. Somewhere below, a large, soft-bodied target returns the sound differently than open water. The echo comes back. The click rate begins to shorten. The whale adjusts heading and angle. The interval shortens again. The prey is resolving. A large animal, suspended in the water column, moving or hovering. The squid has eyes built to detect exactly this moment. Whether it detects the whale in time depends on distance, bioluminescent disturbance in the water, and variables that can't be reconstructed. If it detects the approach soon enough, it contracts its mantle and jets away through its siphon, the cephalopod escape mechanism, powerful for its body mass. If the whale is already close enough that detection doesn't matter, the click rate climbs to buzz frequency. 24 meters. The terminal sequence begins. The kinematic jerk of acceleration. The sucker marks on the whale's skin mean the squid grabbed back. Documented cases: stranded sperm whales in the Canary Islands, injured individuals examined in the Mediterranean, include pathological findings consistent with large squid encounters, internal injuries, healed trauma around the face and head. The confrontation has 2 participants. Researchers summarizing the interaction have noted that a giant squid is unlikely to be any real match for a healthy adult sperm whale. The scars are evidence of the fight, not evidence of its outcome being in question. The beaks in the stomach say, it didn't matter. Now the layer that reframes everything. Before industrial whaling, global sperm whale populations have been estimated at between 1.1 million and nearly 2 million animals. A 2022 modeling study published in Nature Scientific Reports placed the figure around 1.95 million as of approximately 1710. These animals were distributed across every deep ocean on the planet, diving continuously, hunting continuously. At population scale, across 1 million or more animals, the predation pressure on deep squid populations was constant, continuous, and planet-wide. Then whalers arrived. Commercial sperm whaling intensified through the 18th century, peaked in the 19th, and continued at industrial scale through the mid-20th. By the post-World War II period, when Norwegian and Soviet fleets were operating at their highest extraction rates, the global sperm whale population had been reduced to roughly 1/3 of its pre-whaling level. Hundreds of thousands of animals removed from the ocean. During that same period, particularly in the latter half of the 19th century, giant squid started appearing in places they weren't expected. Between roughly 1870 and 1880, giant squid strandings on the shores of Newfoundland were described as unusually frequent. New Zealand saw similar concentrations of strandings in the late 19th century. The mainstream scientific explanation for giant squid strandings points to oceanographic disruption. Changes in current temperature, anomalous water movement pushing cold water habitat boundaries in ways that disorient the animals and drive them toward shore. This is the established position, and it has supporting data. The strandings aren't simply caused by predator absence in any proven, direct causal chain, but the correlation sits there, and its logic is worth examining carefully. Sperm whales are the only known adult predators of giant squid. The beak counts and the behavioral tag data confirm they consume them at massive scale. A population of nearly 2 million sperm whales operating continuously across every deep ocean exerts predation pressure that shapes squid populations, squid distribution, and squid behavior. Remove that predator, reduce it to 1/3 of its former abundance across 2 centuries of commercial hunting, and the prey operates in a fundamentally different ocean. Whether that reduction directly caused the 19th century strandings, or whether oceanographic anomaly was the primary driver, or whether both forces were operating simultaneously, is a question the evidence doesn't fully resolve. Causation here is contested. What isn't contested? A trophic relationship of this scale, disrupted at this magnitude, changes something. The creatures that once disappeared into the dark under the pressure of constant predation from 1 million hunters began appearing at the surface during the exact era when those hunters were being removed at industrial scale. The pattern moves in both directions. As commercial whaling slowed and stopped across the latter half of the 20th century and whale populations began their incomplete recovery, the frequency of large-scale squid strandings tracked back toward historical baseline. The whale functions, in the ecological sense, as a lid on the deep. The creatures below its hunting range are defined partly in their behavior by its presence, by the continuous acoustic sweep of clicks in the dark water, by the certainty that if you are large enough to reflect sound and slow enough to be caught, something will find you. When the clicks stopped sweeping, whatever that certainty had been enforcing rearranged itself. We know now what happens when a sperm whale finds a giant squid at depth. The click rate climbs. The buzz begins. The squid, carrying eyes built over millions of years for exactly this moment, either reacts in time or it doesn't. The scars and the beaks say which outcome is more common. 18,000 beaks in a single stomach is a long record. What we are still working out is what happens to the ocean when the hunt stops. 2 centuries of whaling gave us an inadvertent experiment. The prey surfaces when the predator disappears. The deep gets stranger when nothing is sweeping it with sound. The sperm whale population is slowly recovering, but it is still at a fraction of what it was, and the arithmetic of what that means for the organisms sharing that depth hasn't finished resolving. The confrontation no camera has ever filmed has been happening, somewhere in the dark below the light, for tens of millions of years. It left its record in scars and beaks and blue blood and the fossils of ancient squid predators, and in the 19th century strandings of animals that surfaced when the thing hunting them was taken away. The evidence is forensic, but it is complete enough to read.